Lessons from the Wall Street Giants. When you spend enough time on Wall Street, you eventually realize that there are two kinds of traders. The first group is made up of the restless majority, people chasing every tick, glued to the screen, trying to catch lightning in a bottle. The second group is much smaller, almost invisible. They don't make noise, they don't brag, they don't rush. They wait. They wait for weeks, sometimes months, and when they strike, it looks effortless. That second group, my friend, is the one that builds empires. I learned this lesson the hard way, but it crystallized for me one afternoon when I sat in a private meeting with one of the true titans of the market. He was the kind of man who could move billions with a single phone call, yet he sat quietly, sipping black coffee, listening more than speaking. I asked him a question that had been burning in me for years. How often do you trade? He looked at me with a faint smile, as if amused by my impatience. Then he said words that still echo in my head to this day. Open quote, "In a good year, I need no more than 1 or 2 real trades. That's enough to feed my reputation and my fortune." Close quote. At first, I thought he was joking. 1 or 2 trades in a whole year? I was out there taking 10 trades before lunch. How could this man, sitting on top of the financial world, tell me that his success boiled down to a handful of moves? But the more I watched him, the more I realized he was dead serious. He wasn't lazy. He wasn't avoiding the market. He was stalking it, like a predator waiting for prey to come within striking distance. This was the first time I truly understood the difference between amateurs and giants. Amateurs think opportunities are everywhere. Giants know opportunities are rare. Giants don't measure success by how many times they enter the market, but by how precisely they choose their battles. I remember shadowing him for a while. Most days he did nothing. He read. He studied. He waited. His traders would come with ideas, flashing charts and statistics. He would listen, nod, and then say, "Not yet." Weeks passed, and he still hadn't pulled the trigger. I was growing restless just watching him. My old habits itched. I wanted action, movement, something. But he was stone-cold calm. Then one morning, after months of silence, he leaned forward, called in his team, and gave the order. In one decisive move, he allocated hundreds of millions. His voice was calm, almost casual, but the entire room shifted. Everyone knew this was the trade. And in the months that followed, that one trade delivered more profit than all my frantic activity over the entire year. That was when it hit me. The giants on Wall Street don't win by outworking everyone in terms of trades. They win by outweighting everyone in terms of patience. Another giant I knew, an old-school operator who survived the crash of '87, the dot-com bubble, and the financial crisis, once told me this. Open quote, "The market pays you for being selective. You can't catch every wave, but the ones you do catch should carry you far enough to make the rest irrelevant." Close quote. That advice cut through my arrogance like a knife. For years, I thought the more I traded, the more chances I had to win. But the giants taught me the opposite. Every trade you take has a cost, even if you win. It costs mental energy, emotional stability, and sometimes it robs you of the patience needed for the real setup. I began to see their wisdom play out in my own life. When I traded too often, I was scattered, drained, and inconsistent. But when I forced myself to step back, to wait for only the cleanest opportunities, my win rate improved. My stress levels dropped. My confidence grew. I no longer felt like a desperate gambler at the table. I started to feel like a hunter who could wait as long as needed for the perfect shot. The giants also taught me something about ego. Amateurs crave constant proof that they are right. They need the dopamine rush of small wins to feel alive. Giants don't care about that. Giants let the world underestimate them. They don't need to look busy. They don't need validation. They only need to be right when it matters. And here's the brutal truth. It takes enormous psychological strength to do nothing. Doing nothing goes against human nature. We are wired to act, to fix, to chase. But in the market, doing nothing is often the most profitable move. The giants embrace that. They can sit still while the rest of the crowd burns themselves out. That's why the crowd feeds the giants. The money of the impatient flows straight into the pockets of the patient. I often think about how many accounts I burned before I learned this lesson. If I had understood earlier that 1 or 2 trades could define an entire year, maybe I would have saved myself years of pain. But then again, Maybe I needed to feel that pain to truly grasp the lesson. Because here's another thing the giants taught me: wisdom cannot be borrowed, it must be earned. You can hear their words 1,000 times, but until you live through the consequences of impatience, you won't really believe them. Now, when I look back, I see the giants not as mystical geniuses, but as masters of restraint. They were not superhuman. They simply had the discipline to wait. And discipline, my friend, is rarer than intelligence on Wall Street. Intelligence is everywhere. Patience is almost extinct. I remember sitting across from one of them in his office. He leaned back, hands folded, and said, open quote, "Most traders spend their lives chasing the market. I spend my life letting the market come to me." Close quote. That single sentence sums up the entire philosophy of the giants. They don't chase, they attract. They don't fear missing out. They fear acting too soon, and that, more than anything, is why they last. So what is the lesson here? If you want to trade like the giants, stop trying to be everywhere. Stop mistaking activity for progress. Start valuing patience as much as you value analysis. Understand that your year, maybe even your career, might be defined by just a handful of trades. Accept that silence and inaction are not weaknesses but weapons. And remember this: the market is a machine built to transfer money from the impatient to the patient. I once thought success was about speed, about action, about proving myself trade after trade. The giants showed me that success is about waiting, about restraint, about knowing that one decisive move can outweigh 100 random ones. They taught me that the art of trading is not the art of doing, but the art of not doing until the time is right. That, my friend, is the lesson of the Wall Street giants, the psychology behind one single trade. There is a silent battlefield that every trader must cross if they want to survive in this game, and it is not on the charts or in the news feeds. That battlefield is inside the mind. Over the years, I have learned that the hardest part of trading is not technical analysis, not interpreting economic reports, not even finding the right entry. The hardest part is psychological, the discipline and patience it takes to wait for one single trade. When I was young, I thought activity meant progress. I believed that if I traded more, I would learn faster and earn quicker. What I did not realize was that each trade I forced was not teaching me anything other than how weak my psychology truly was. The more I clicked the mouse, the more I was feeding my ego, not my account. Over time, I discovered that the essence of trading is not in action, but in restraint. The urge to act. The urge to act is one of the strongest forces in trading. The market flashes red and green candles, the news scrolls across the screen, and your heart races as if you are missing out on something big. This psychological tension is unbearable for most. I have seen traders who could not sit through 5 quiet days without forcing a trade. I used to be one of them. But here is the truth: most opportunities in the market are noise. They appear exciting, but they are traps dressed in volatility. If you allow your emotions to dictate your actions, you end up trading the market's randomness instead of its structure. That is like trying to catch every wave in the ocean. You will drown before you ever learn to surf. The weight of silence. The most difficult skill I had to learn was how to sit still. Waiting weeks for a clear setup, staring at the screen while nothing aligns, fighting the temptation to jump in, it feels like torture. The silence is heavy. It tests your nerves and makes you question your worth as a trader. But I came to understand that this silence is not wasted time. It is where discipline is forged. When you sit in that silence, you begin to notice your own impulses. You see how quickly greed whispers in your ear, how easily fear drives you to exit too soon, how boredom tricks you into believing that any trade is better than no trade. The silence of waiting is like a mirror. It reflects every weakness you have as a trader. And if you cannot endure that silence, you will never be ready for the clarity of one single trade. The battle between ego and patience. The ego always wants to prove something, that you are smart enough, fast enough, talented enough to outplay the market. The ego is restless. It cannot stand the idea of missing out. Patience, on the other hand, has no need to prove anything. Patience says, the market is eternal, and opportunities will come again. My job is to wait for one that is truly mine. I had to learn to kill my ego, trade by trade. Every time I forced an entry that did not meet my criteria, I was feeding the ego. Every time I resisted, I was feeding patience. Eventually, patience grew stronger and ego weakened. But it was a long and painful process, filled with losses that taught me humility, the clarity of the right moment. There is a kind of calmness that descends when the right trade finally appears. After weeks of waiting, when the technicals, the sentiment, and the structure align, you feel no rush. There is no racing heartbeat, no frantic clicking, no second guessing. You just know. That calm confidence is the reward for waiting. It is not about excitement, it is about clarity. When you act from that place of clarity, your psychology is aligned with the market. You are not chasing, you are not gambling, you are not proving anything. You are simply executing the one trade you were meant to take, and that one single trade can define your entire year. Freedom through restraint. The paradox of trading is that true freedom comes from restraint. By limiting myself to only the best setups, I liberated myself from the constant anxiety of, should I trade now? I no longer needed to be glued to the screen, no longer needed to catch every move. I became free by surrendering to patience. Most traders do not realize this until it is too late. They burn through accounts, chasing every flicker on the chart until exhaustion forces them to quit. But the ones who endure, the ones who rise above, are those who master the psychology of waiting. Final reflection. Looking back, I can say with certainty that the battle for trading success is fought not on the charts, but in the mind. The ability to sit quietly, to wait for one single trade, is the highest form of mastery. It takes years of failure, frustration, and soul searching to reach that point. But once you do, you will never see the market the same way again. Because in the end, trading is not about how many trades you take. It is about how deeply you understand yourself. And once you learn to control your own psychology, one single trade is all you will ever need. When opportunity appears. Opportunity in the markets does not arrive with fireworks. It does not announce itself with certainty or guarantee. It comes quietly, often disguised as risk, sometimes hidden in chaos, and almost always demanding a level of patience that few are willing to give. In my decades of trading, I have learned that spotting opportunity is not the hardest part. It is recognizing it, trusting it, and having the courage to act at the exact moment when it presents itself. The elusiveness of true opportunity. When I was younger, I mistook volatility for opportunity. A sudden spike in price, a breakout that looked convincing, or a dramatic headline. Those were the things I jumped on, convinced that action meant seizing the moment. Most of the time, I ended up on the wrong side. The market has a cruel way of teaching you that what looks urgent is often a trap. True opportunity is different. It is not loud. It is subtle, like a faint rhythm that only a trained ear can hear. You only begin to sense it after you have been burned enough times to stop chasing noise. And when you finally develop the discipline to wait, you discover that opportunities are rare but powerful. Preparation meets timing. There is a saying on Wall Street that opportunity favors the prepared. I used to roll my eyes at such cliches, but over the years I have seen how true it is. Without preparation, even the best opportunity slips through your fingers. Preparation means more than reading charts. It means having your levels mapped out days or weeks in advance. It means knowing exactly what conditions must align before you commit. It means rehearsing your execution in your mind so that when the moment comes, you are not hesitating. When I look back on my biggest trades, the ones that defined entire quarters, they were never accidents. They were the result of endless preparation. I knew what I was waiting for, and when the market finally delivered it, I was ready. Others saw the same chart but could not pull the trigger because they had not prepared. The tension before the strike. The hardest moment in trading is not the entry or the exit. It is the seconds before you decide to act. That is where psychology either carries you forward or paralyzes you. I remember one trade in particular. I had been tracking a stock for weeks. Every indicator lined up, the structure was perfect, the sentiment was leaning my way. And yet, when the setup arrived, my hand trembled on the mouse. Fear whispered, "What if you are wrong? What if this is the one that breaks you?" That hesitation is natural. In fact, it is necessary. It shows you erecting the market, but you cannot let hesitation become paralysis. The opportunity does not wait. It flashes and then it disappears. At that precise moment, you either trust your preparation or you walk away empty-handed. Courage versus impulse. Many traders confuse courage with impulse. They think jumping into every move is bravery. It is not. That is recklessness dressed up as confidence. Courage is different. Courage is waiting through weeks of boredom and silence, enduring the frustration of inactivity, and then stepping up at the exact moment when your setup appears. Courage is pressing the button when you feel fear, but act anyway, because you know you are not gambling. You are executing a plan. This kind of courage cannot be faked. It comes only from discipline and self-control. And the more times you act with true courage, the more natural it becomes. Eventually, you stop needing to force trades. You wait calmly, knowing that opportunity will come again. The loneliness of the right decision. Another thing about opportunity, it rarely feels comfortable. Often, when the best trade presents itself, the crowd is moving in the opposite direction. That is why most traders miss it. I recall shorting a stock once while the entire market was euphoric about it. The company had become a darling of the financial media. Everyone was buying. Every headline screamed growth. Every analyst raised their targets. But beneath the surface, I saw weakness. The chart structure was broken. The volume was telling another story, and the insiders were quietly selling. Taking that short felt like stepping into a storm alone. People laughed at me. Some even accused me of being reckless. But my conviction was strong because I had done the work. Weeks later, when the stock collapsed, those same voices went silent. The lesson? When opportunity appears, it often demands that you stand apart from the crowd. That loneliness is not easy, but it is where the real profits are found. The discipline of letting go. Here is another truth few discuss. Not every opportunity is meant for you. Sometimes the setup is good, the structure is solid, but you are not in the right state of mind. Maybe you are tired, maybe you are emotional from a previous loss, maybe you simply do not feel centered. If you force yourself to take that trade, even if it is technically sound, your psychology will sabotage it. I have learned that part of respecting opportunity is knowing when to let it go. The market will always offer another chance. Missing one does not matter. Forcing one can destroy you. The rare beauty of alignment. When the right opportunity finally arrives, it feels different. It is as if the noise fades and the picture becomes clear. The price structure, the market sentiment, the timing, all of it aligns in a way that feels almost effortless. There is no rush, no panic, no second guessing. You simply act because the preparation and the moment have merged into one. Those trades are rare. Sometimes you see only a handful of them in a year. But they are the ones that matter. They are the trades that move the needle, that justify all the waiting and all the patience. And when you catch one, you understand why restraint is the greatest weapon a trader can possess. The aftermath of opportunity. Opportunity does not end with the entry. How you handle it afterward matters just as much. The temptation to take profits too soon, the fear of losing gains, the greed to squeeze out every last dollar. These psychological battles can ruin a perfect trade. That is why I treat opportunity with respect even after I have acted on it. I manage my stop, I scale out when necessary, and most importantly, I remind myself that the goal is not to be perfect, but to be consistent. An opportunity seized is not about one trade, it is about reinforcing the discipline that will carry me into the next one. Final thoughts. Over time, I have come to see opportunity not as something external, but as something internal. The market offers chances every day, but only the trader who has prepared, who has cultivated patience, and who has mastered their psychology can truly recognize them. Opportunity is not just what the market gives, it is what you are ready to take. And when it finally appears, your entire career can change in a single decision. So the next time you are staring at your screen, fighting the urge to act, remember this: your job is not to chase every move. Your job is to prepare, to wait, and to have the courage to strike when the real opportunity appears. Because in this business, it is not the many trades that define you, it is the few that matter, the essence of a lifetime of experience. There comes a moment in every trader's journey when the years of scars, failures, triumphs, and quiet battles crystallize into a single, unshakable truth. For me, that moment did not arrive suddenly. It was not a flash of enlightenment or a stroke of genius. It was the slow grind of decades on Wall Street, where every tick on the chart carried the weight of human greed and fear. It was forged through countless nights staring at screens long after the city had gone silent, wondering why I was always too early or too late, why my conviction was crushed by noise, and why the market always seemed one step ahead. When I look back, I do not see a series of victories strung together. I see long stretches of silence broken by a few decisive moments that defined entire years. And that, I have come to understand, is the very essence of trading. Life-changing results are not built on endless action, but on rare, deliberate strikes. The early illusion of mastery. In my early years, I thought mastery meant knowing everything. I devoured every book, every chart pattern, every piece of research that crossed my desk. I memorized candlestick names like a priest memorizing scripture. I believed if I armed myself with enough information, I would be invincible. But the market has no mercy for encyclopedias. I learned, brutally, that knowledge without patience is just noise. I would jump into trades out of excitement, certain that my analysis was bulletproof, only to watch the price reverse as if mocking me. My charts looked perfect in hindsight, but in real time, they were traps I built for myself. What I lacked was not intelligence or dedication. It was restraint. It was the ability to let time do the heavy lifting instead of trying to force an outcome. The evolution of restraint. Over the years, restraint became my greatest weapon. The more I waited, the more I saw. Markets reveal themselves not in minutes, but in patterns that stretch across weeks, months, even years. A true setup does not whisper. It announces itself with clarity so sharp you feel it in your bones. I learned to silence the chatter in my head, to ignore the endless tick-by-tick fluctuations, and to watch the broader structure unfold. Like a chess grandmaster who sees 10 moves ahead, I began to sense the rhythm of accumulation and distribution, of fear tightening its grip and euphoria loosening discipline. Restraint gave me perspective. Perspective gave me precision. Precision gave me freedom. The battle with the self. Yet the greatest battle was never with the market. It was always with myself. My impatience, my ego, my hunger for constant validation. The market, after all, is a mirror. It reflects back every weakness we try to hide. For me, that reflection was ruthless. I had to confront the truth that my worst enemy was not volatility or manipulation, but the restless part of me that could not sit still. It took years to accept that doing nothing is not weakness. It is power. Every time I sat on my hands while others scrambled, I was training the most vital muscle in trading: discipline. Every time I let a tempting setup pass because it was not perfect, I was strengthening the foundation of my career. And every time I waited, sometimes painfully, for that one trade that carried true conviction, I was aligning myself with the rhythm of the market rather than fighting against it. The weight of rare opportunities. When the right opportunity finally arrived, it carried a different weight. It was not a guess, not a hunch, not a forced entry out of boredom. It was clarity. It was inevitability. It was as though the market itself had paused to whisper, now. Those moments did not come often. Some years, I counted them on one hand. But when they came, they made everything else irrelevant. A single decisive strike, backed by years of waiting, wiped away months of small losses or mediocre trades. That is the paradox of trading. A lifetime of effort may distill down to just a handful of moments. And yet that handful was all I needed. The long view. Now, after decades of living through bull markets, bear markets, crashes, and recoveries, I see trading differently. To me, the market is not a puzzle to be solved daily. It is a canvas that reveals its masterpiece only to those willing to stand back and watch it take shape. The young trader sees urgency everywhere. The veteran sees inevitability. The young trader fears missing out. The veteran fears only breaking discipline. The young trader trades for excitement. The veteran trades for freedom. This is the essence of experience. Realizing that the game is not about winning every day, but about surviving long enough for the rare opportunities to reveal themselves. The essence of a lifetime. If I had to condense all my years into a single sentence, it would be this: patience is the highest form of skill on Wall Street. Everything else, analysis, tools, strategies, matters only in service of that one principle. Without patience, you are just another body thrown against the waves of the market. With it, you become the tide itself. The market rewards those who endure. It does not care how clever you are, how fast you are, or how loud your conviction is. It cares only about who can wait. So when I speak of the essence of a lifetime, I do not speak of money, of accolades, or of fame. I speak of arriving at peace with the fact that in trading, doing less is often the path to achieving more. That is the wisdom only time can teach, and the reward only patience can earn. If you find value in these lessons and want to sharpen not only your strategy, but also your mindset, make sure to hit that subscribe button and join the Trading Mindset Lab community. This is where traders grow stronger together. Step by step, trade by trade. Don't just trade the market, learn to master yourself. Subscribe now and never miss the insights that could change your trading journey forever.